Now, this early 19th century newspaper account deals with what was called at the time the Man Mountain, which was supposedly this giant, hair-covered, half-human, half-ape monster that lived in the swamps of the Florida-Georgia border. At one point, two hunters are out in the bottomlands in the swamp, and they find a track about 19 inches long and about 9 inches wide, unlike anything they've ever seen. And these are hunters, these are woodsmen, so they're justifiably startled. That night, as they camp, suddenly they're woken up by these huge, horrendous, bellowing screams. And they very quickly take off, getting out of the swamp as fast as they can, even leaving some of their gear behind in their haste.
We went on a hunt.
And once they get back into civilization there, the two guys begin to tell this story around.
I first thought it was a human being that left the print, and then it had toe prints as well. Did you see the print?
Lots of people are intrigued. They describe the size of the tracks and the bellowing screams and all this sort of thing. And eventually a party of individuals, both from Georgia and Florida, gets together, and they're going to go out and they're going to try to hunt this creature. And they are armed to the teeth with rifles and pistols and swords and all the weapons of the day. They set off into the woods there, into the swamps and the bottomlands, and they're out for quite some time, for like 2 weeks. So finally, after 2 weeks of frustrating effort and not really finding anything, they do find some tracks, and they make camp nearby and prepare to look for the creature at first light. During the night, after everybody has dozed off and everybody's asleep, the camp is all quiet. And suddenly they're actually attacked by this creature, taken totally by surprise. And you can only imagine what it would be like to wake up to a 10, 12, 13-foot monster in your camp. Some of the guys managed to get up and grab firearms and get several shots off. The creature is hit numerous times, but it still manages to kill the majority of the party. And so they finish the creature off, and as they examine the creature's body in the dark, they find it to be this giant 13-foot tall monster with huge muscles and just terrifying proportions. The survivors are fearful that the commotion may attract other monsters, so they very quickly gather up some firearms and head out of the swamp. And of course, they don't bother to take any part of the monster to actually verify their story, but the story was picked up by several other newspapers at the time.
Just because you read it in the newspaper doesn't make it real. We know that in the 19th century that there were reporters actually making up really grandiose, bizarre stories. This could be one of them. But it's interesting because it does fit in with the more modern pattern of this swamp creature and with footprints and a lot of similarities to what is reported in the 20th century.